Mine too. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council for the City of Calistoga. It is Tuesday, September 4th at 6 p.m. City Clerk Flamson, has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lopez Ortega. Here. Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Councilmember Kraus.
Here.
Mayor Canning.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Dunsford is reported absent.
Vice Mayor Dunsford has an excused absence because apparently today is his birthday. But I will.
Since when is that an excuse?
I will.
We all have those.
I will say, unfortunately for us, though, by him skipping out, we are all deprived of a Rosie Dunsford birthday cake, which would have been here. So
He owes us ice cream.
he does. If you'll please all stand and join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hopefully everyone had a nice holiday weekend. I think that means summer is over, winter is coming. We'll move on to oral communication on consent items or non-agendized items. This time is set aside to receive comments from the public regarding matters on the consent calendar or matters of municipal concern that are not on the agenda. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, also known as the Brown Act. However, the council cannot consider any issues or take action on any requests during this comment period. Speakers are encouraged to limit their comments to 3 minutes maximum so that all speakers have an opportunity to address the City Council. And as a reminder, there is no allotment of your time to another speaker. Your 3 minutes are your 3 minutes. I do not have any speaker cards. Is anyone interested in addressing the council on any item not on the agenda or that's on the consent calendar? Not seeing any movement toward the podium or the lectern. I'll close oral communication and I'll entertain a motion for adoption of this evening's meeting agenda as presented unless a modification is requested.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Barnes. We have a second by Councilmember Kraus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you very much. Council requests and ideas for discussion. Councilmember Lopez Ortega.
First, I want to say thank you to everybody who came to the celebration of the 15-year anniversary of the Al Valley Family Center, and to all the different agencies that they were there providing information about the services they do. And also, I had a question regarding the status of the bridge that is supposed to connect the community center to the Pioneer Park. And last, I just want to introduce my granddaughter, Vivian Agapov.
All right, where is she? Oh, there we go.
And there is a lady who is visiting us today. Her name is Talia. She's in the public, and I just want to welcome her to Calistoga.
Welcome back. So either we have the benefit of Director of Public Works, Mike Kern, or the City Manager with a quick 30-second update on our pedestrian bridge from this plaza over to Pioneer Park.
I'll leave it very brief because we actually have an agenda item coming before City Council here in the coming weeks. If everyone wants to go back and look, you can actually see where the pedestrian bridge will go from here on this side. We've actually marked with some orange tape across the bridge on where it goes. We're going to have a presentation from our not architects, from our engineers here soon about what we need to do as part of submitting this project, and that'll go over everything from timelines, funding. It's pretty robust environmental issues that we're looking at. It appears at this point, after having consultants on board for a while, that we need to be very careful and cautious about environmental impacts working on the river, but also in timing it. We're working very hard to secure funding, which is grant funding, for the installation cost of the bridge. So we're very hopeful that not only did we get a bridge and lease it to the project up here on Berry Street when we did the work, but also when we install it, we'd like to use grant funding to install the bridge. And we'll have a more robust update and timing here in the coming weeks.
Thank you very
Hopefully,
much.
when you update us, you can also update us as to the footpath bridge, or the footbridge, I guess you'd call it, the footpath bridge.
Envelope.
I have constituents that would like to see it remain because it gets them down close to the water, and then we also know that it's a barrier to fish. So there should be some discussion at some point as to what happens to that.
All right. All set? Councilmember Barnes.
Just my every 2 weeks reminder that we have a big election coming up. Vote. If you're not registered, register. And a word of caution, there's a lot of rumors starting to fly around the city. Don't be a rumor monger. Go to City Hall, get the facts, talk to one of us, talk to the department heads. We'll tell you the truth. We will tell you what's going on. Rumors are bad. Thank you.
Councilmember Kraus.
I would certainly second what Jim just mentioned, and other than that, I don't have anything else.
All right, couple items, just a reminder, and everyone, and all residences, businesses in Calistoga did receive this flyer in your mail, reminding you of the upcoming 5th annual Calistoga Harvest Table on Lincoln Avenue, which will be closing Lincoln Avenue from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. this coming Sunday. There are also some parking restrictions. It will be much easier this year because the Berry Street Bridge is open, so your detour will not require you to go all the way out into the county to come back into the city. So just a reminder, and this was sent out in English and Spanish, Harvest Table. Everyone is welcome to join between 4:30 and 6, and then at 6 o'clock, if you are a ticket holder for dinner, you're welcome to sit at the table. Also wanted to echo Councilmember Lopez Ortega's comments about the Back to School Night, the 15th annual, put on by the Up Valley Family Center. It was a fantastic event. I think it's got to be the biggest one I've ever seen there. A couple thousand people, so it was very impressive. And then City Manager Feek to take back for some consideration, and I know we are looking at some signage options, getting a considerable amount of concern and request for more bold signage about not riding your bicycle on the sidewalks. So whether we go to stenciling on the sidewalk or putting up some of the new signage that we have with the new look and feel, something to consider, and I've received some recommendations on where those could go.
Mayor Canning?
Yes,
As
sir.
respects the Harvest Table, one of my constituents asked that I remind the public that the businesses along Main Street will be open during that whole time, even though the street itself is closed. And that they're up and running, so come on down and go shopping.
Thank you very much. City Manager's report. Dylan.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Proclamations, presentations, and awards. We have 4 of them. So we're going to start with Napa County Latino Heritage Month proclamation. I will give you the proclamation in summary, and then after this, Iris will give some translation for me. City of Calistoga proclamation. And if you are receiving the proclamation, if you can come up to the podium, and then after I'm done with this, you'll have an opportunity to share with the community what your organization is up to. Recognizing Napa County Latino Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th, 2018, whereas in 1968, President Lyndon B. Johnson first recognized Hispanic Heritage Week, later expanded by President Reagan to 1 month, and each successive United States president has continued this tradition of declaring September 15th through October 15th to be National Hispanic Heritage Month, and who has called upon the people of our country to observe this month with appropriate respect, ceremonies, and activities. And whereas Napa County and Calistoga has a long history of welcoming immigrants and is home to a growing multi-ethnic and multicultural Latino population, including citizens originating from Mexico, the Caribbean, Central and South America, all of whom are welcome and very much appreciated. Whereas the diverse Latino population in Calistoga and Napa County make a significant economic contribution and have other profound positive influences on our community through their strong commitment to family, faith, education, hard work, culture, and service. And whereas Calistoga and Napa County, which thrives in the diversity and ingenuity of all our people also depends on the continued support and success of our diverse Latino population. We will continue to be enriched by the transcultural contributions of our Latino friends and neighbors for many decades to come, and we will continue to make efforts to create an inclusive environment where we can all thrive. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Chris Canning, Mayor of the City of Calistoga, and the Calistoga City Council, do hereby proclaim, in deep appreciation to the diverse Latino population of Napa County, September 15th through October 15th, 2018, as Napa County Latino Heritage Month in Calistoga, signed and sealed this 4th day of September in the year of 2018. And as a reminder of how multicultural we are, our population, our official population in Calistoga, according to the U.S. Census, is 49% Anglo, 49% Latino, and 2% all other. Truth be told, I think we are actually closer to 51% Latino, and they are a very strong contributor to our culture and to our economy and just the overall community as a whole.
Want me to read the whole text? No,
You can
just
summarize
a
as you wish,
very-
whatever as you
okay.
wish. We did.
Okay. Esta proclamación es para celebrar y reconocer el mes de la herencia hispana, que es de septiembre 15 a octubre 15 del 2018. En 1968, el presidente Lyndon Johnson reconoció el mes de la herencia hispana y después se expandió por orden del presidente Reagan para un mes y después así sucesivamente. En Napa y Calistoga tenemos una gran historia de bienvenida a los inmigrantes y celebramos que somos una comunidad multicultural de originaria de muchos países centroamericanos y del Caribe. Y por eso en este mes la ciudad de Calistoga, por medio de el mayor Chris Canning y el concilio, proclaman este mes como el mes de la herencia hispana.
Thank you very much. Am I holding this, Kathy? All right. All right, moving on, we have another proclamation. This one is Community Statement on Immigration. City of Calistoga Proclamation. Whereas thank you very much. Whereas the City of Calistoga, as well as our law enforcement agencies and business, nonprofit, and faith communities, recognize the long and rich history of immigrants who have contributed to our city, that immigrants have supported our city's success in agriculture, tourism, education, business, healthcare, and many other professions, and whereas the building of a welcoming community is fundamental to a vibrant and inclusive city of Calistoga, and that we want to assure immigrants, refugees, and other newcomers opportunities for family unity, empowerment, civic engagement, safety, and freedom from discrimination, oppression, and violence. And whereas it is important for our leadership to make a statement that families belong together and that the practice of separating children from their parents is cruel and traumatizing and does not represent the values that this country was founded upon. And whereas we recognize that families seeking refuge in the United States already endure emotional and physical stress, separating children from their parents only exacerbates this stress, and criminalization of asylum seekers is harmful. And whereas these children are experiencing adverse childhood experiences, which research shows will put them at a higher risk for substance abuse, mental health issues, heart disease as adults. And whereas we call on the federal government to immediately reunite separated children with their parents or relatives to reduce the harm done and to buffer against the trauma and shock that has been inflicted. And whereas humane conditions must be a top priority as our nation addresses the challenges of immigration, and we recognize that the incarceration of children together with their parents is not a real solution and also does harm to the child's welfare and well-being. And whereas a relationship of trust among California's immigrant families and our local organizations, including law enforcement and schools, is essential to the effective execution of basic and local functions, as well as the health and well-being of children who are vital to our city's future. Now therefore be it proclaimed that we aspire to be a community that supports family health and well-being, and will be a model for inclusion and respect for all populations, including immigrants, refugees, and other newcomers, and will demonstrate the values of unity and acceptance. Signed, Chris Canning, Mayor of the City of Calistoga.
La ciudad de Calistoga proclama que este statement para inmigración. La ciudad de Calistoga, igual que las agencias del orden, los negocios, las agencias sin fines de lucro, las agencias religiosas, reconocen la historia rica de los inmigrantes que han contribuido a nuestra ciudad, y esos inmigrantes han soportado el suceso en la agricultura, el turismo, en la educación, los negocios y otras áreas profesionales. Y reconocemos que las familias deben de estar juntas todo el tiempo sin estar separadas. Y por eso condenamos el acto que este gobierno está haciendo de separar a las familias. Las familias son muy importantes para nuestra ciudad, nuestra economía y el futuro de nuestro país. Por eso esta ciudad, por medio del señor Chris Canning, el mayor, y proclama esta proclamación.
Thank you. I'll bring this up to you, but please introduce yourself, absolutely, and share with us who you represent and what your organization is up to.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Canning, and council members, and Dylan and Iris especially, for bringing this proclamation to you all. And I represent, and we'll quickly introduce the rest of the folks. We are the Community Leader Coalition, and we're the Up Valley members. There's also a Napa Coalition, and I'm going to just read what we do. The purpose of our group is to gather as community leaders in response to the current political climate and work together to advocate for and support the vulnerable populations we serve in the Upper Valley communities of Napa. Our vision is as nonpartisan community leaders, we strive to be well-informed and actively engaged in collective solutions that address community concerns, fears, or needs resulting from federal policy change. I'm a little nervous. Get up and speak. We envision a vibrant community that's inclusive and equitable, where trust, safety, health, well-being, and empowerment is fostered and is shared responsibly for all members. A couple topics that we've been addressing is the Voters' Choice Act, being able to make sure that all different age groups are made aware of what needs to happen and how they can vote, and most recently is immigration issues. And so this topic came up, and as a group we thought a nice way to be able to reach out throughout our communities to come up with this proclamation. And we were able to read it or have it read in St. Helena, and we're very grateful for you all to be able to see this as an important thing. And what a perfect segue after the Immigration Month to have this follow. So we really applaud you for seeing that this is an important proclamation. There's a couple people, I would love it if these folks could introduce themselves so you get to see the width and the diversity within our...
Hi everyone, my name is Blanca Dixon and I work for the Valley Family Centers. I'm the Immigration Program Coordinator, and I'm also the Department of Justice Accredited Rep. And I do provide direct service to our clients. I just want to thank the City of Calistoga on behalf of the Valley Family Centers, and especially with our clients too, because I see when they come to my office and I told them that there's no fee because the City of Calistoga is covering that fee for representation. You have to see that the happiness on their face, that they don't have to pay anything for our services. So I just want to thank you, and we really appreciate your help for helping us to help the community that needs the support right now. Thank you.
I'm Susan Napoliello, the deacon at St. Luke's Episcopal Church, and on behalf of the coalition, I link the work that we're doing with the faith community.
I'm Donnie Dyer. I, for a long time, was associated with the Calistoga Family Center, then the Up Valley Family Center. You'll remember that, Jim?
I do. We served together.
And I'm a part of this coalition representing progressive women of Napa County. And I should say, this is a small representation of the group. One of our members, who probably you already know, is Chris Canning.
And our police chief in the back, Mitch. Yep. So, hi, everyone. My name is Janet Todd, and I am Joyful Janet. I'm the executive director in Girls on the Run, Napa and Solano. And I am really honored to be a part of this group because 74% of our girls are low-income girls that are participating in girls' empowerment. And we have a diverse group of families, with 60% of our families coming from our Latina community, and we are just grateful that you're supporting our girls. And I have to say that I'm a new Calistogan. I moved a couple months ago, and actually I lead the girls after-school program here at the elementary school. So I'm honored to be a part of this community that really embraces inclusivity and the empowerment of not only our girls, but our community. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Ellsworth, and I'm on the St. Helena City Council. And I was very pleased that this proclamation came to us and came to you as well. To me, one of the things I said at the council meeting in St. Helena was that while we all have different perspectives on immigration, that what to me this proclamation is about is at what point we stand up when we recognize crossing of a line of inhumanity with family separation. And that all religions acknowledge concepts of reciprocity, such as doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. Over 150 years after the abolition of slavery, we as a country are still trying to repair the wounds incurred from family separation surrounding that unfortunate period in American history. And I believe to not stand together now against family separation will take us down a path of more and irreparable harm to our people, our nation, and our place in this world. So I think this proclamation being signed in St. Helena and Calistoga says that we are willing to stand up and not go down paths such as that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Janet, after all those years of discovering and living in those down valley towns, welcome to paradise. And as a diplomatic courtesy, Councilmember Ellsworth, welcome up north. Before leaving town, stop in a restaurant, spend some money. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. City of Calistoga Proclamation, Constitution Week, September 17th to the 23rd, 2018. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principle of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17th, 2018 marks the 231st anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document in its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Chris Canning, Mayor of the City of Calistoga, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. Signed and sealed this 4th day of September 2018. And do we have anyone representing taking this? Please join at the podium and share with us who you're representing.
Hi, my name is Carol Cavanero, and I am with the Daughters of the American Revolution. This is a nonprofit women's organization that was started in the late 1800s to commemorate the Revolutionary War. To become a member, you must be able to trace your lineage back to a Revolutionary War patriot. The tenets of the Daughters of the American Revolution are twofold. One, to serve in many volunteer ways for veterans and their families, and the other is to keep the public educated and apprised of what the cost of that Revolutionary War was. So history, we do many history programs in schools. We have done a big program for Constitution Week in the local schools, and that's what we do. We are a chapter from Napa called Vineyard Trails. We also have one here in Calistoga. There is a chapter. So thank you very much for taking the time and for acknowledging Constitution Week for us. It's an important thing. I would like to also introduce Sarah Black. She is the current regent of the DAR.
Hi, thank you for the proclamation. In addition to our work volunteering with the vets, we also promote naturalism and Americanism and patriotism to our country. So I think we should all be proud to be American. So thank you.
All right, one more proclamation, and this one is in recognition of Suicide Prevention Month. City of Calistoga Proclamation, Suicide Prevention Month, September 2018. Whereas the Napa County Suicide Prevention Council, a public-private collaborative of Napa families impacted by suicide and agencies that serve the Napa County community, strives to save lives and envisions a suicide-free community through education and training, stigma reduction, and provision of resources to combat suicide. And whereas suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States and the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 25 and 34, and the third leading cause of death among individuals 15 to 24. And whereas in 2016, California accounted for 9.5% of the United States suicides, resulting in one person in California dying by suicide every 2 hours. And whereas more than twice as many people die by suicide in California annually than by homicide, and whereas suicide has cost California a total of $4.2 billion of combined lifetime medical and work loss in 2010, and an average of $1.1 million per suicide death. Whereas Napa County has between the years 2000 and 2017 averaged more than 14 suicide deaths annually, the greatest number being individuals 45 to 54 years of age. And whereas the rate of deaths by suicide in Napa County from 2008 to 2016 was greater than the California suicide rate. Whereas every Napa County resident can be an ally by learning about the warning signs of suicidal behavior and how to support someone at risk of suicide. Whereas every Napa County resident can help eliminate stigma associated with suicide and mental illness by treating individuals with mental illness in respect and compassion. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Chris Canning, Mayor of the City of Calistoga, do hereby proclaim September 2018 as Suicide Prevention Month. Please share with us your name and the organization you represent and what you guys have been up to.
Thank you. I'm Bill Carter. I'm the Napa County Mental Health Director. The council started this November, and as it said in the proclamation, is a public-private collaboration initiated by the Mental Health Division and Aldea program. Of the numbers you read, the ones that stick with me is that we have averaged for the last 17 years 14 deaths by suicide in Napa County a year. That means as we end each month, more than one person has made the decision to take their life. And the cost to our community is considerable. The pain and anguish that families and friends experience is immeasurable as well. And then there's a tragedy of that loss of life. So this council is a community effort to shine a light on this issue, because when you understand this and you don't fear it, when you talk about it, when you look for the signs of someone who's in trouble, you can reduce suicide rates. Suicide is extremely preventable, and the council has 3 efforts underway. The first is a messaging campaign, Suicide Impacts Us All. That's being distributed in flyers and posters, and is on for this month, the back of a series of buses that go up and down the valley. I brought a poster. I invite you to display it in Calistoga, and if you have any interest in others, we will provide those to you as well. We're also encouraging entities that are in a position to screen individuals, non-mental health entities, in a position to screen individuals for suicide, to adopt a common measurement tool, the Columbia Suicide Severity Scale, so that in this county we're using the same standards and we're communicating with each other the same way. And then lastly, this next month we'll be kicking off question, persuade, and refer training. So this is training for non-mental health people to help them recognize someone who's at risk for suicide, and helps them understand what they can do and trains them on what they can do to help that individual and link them to services. So we'll be offering that training throughout the year. Thank you.
Bill, thanks to you and your team for all that you do across the county for us. Appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the calendar as presented unless a modification is requested or an item is requested to be pulled.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have item 8 pulled, please.
All right, we will hold item number 8 set aside, but I'll entertain a motion to move items 5, 6, and 7.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kraus, and we have a second by Councilmember Lopez Ortega. Councilmember Barn was left out in the cold. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, those motions carry. Moving on to item number 8 under the consent calendar. Consideration of a resolution that awards a consultant services agreement, CSA, to Environmental Sciences Associates for Phase 1 design of the Riverside Pond relocation project in an amount not to exceed $475,000, authorizes a budget adjustment in the amount of $273,396, designates the city manager or public works director as the city's agent, and authorizing the designated agents to file the necessary documents with FEMA and Cal OES. The recommended action this evening is to adopt the resolution. Councilmember Kraus, would you like the staff report first, or did you have specific questions? And
I have a number of questions and I guess a statement.
Shall we call forward the Public Works Director since we have him in our presence?
That's great.
Director Kern.
Comment. If you're going to call me, just don't call me late for dinner.
That's fair enough. And we'll get you out of here early enough so you can still have that dinner.
If you have all the right answers to my questions, you'd be out of here in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, what is the total expected cost of this project? In other words, we have the planning and design that's going through right now, and then I guess next year we're going to be looking at the actual construction.
It'll be probably in 2020, we'd be looking at construction. Total cost is about $4 million.
About $4 million. Okay. That's a lot of money. Is this project essential that we do this?
In that it is a requirement of our cease and desist order with the regional board, I would say yes, it's essential.
Okay. If we did not have this grant for hazard mitigation, likely would this money have to come from ratepayers?
Yes.
And if we didn't have connection fees from various construction projects around town, including the resorts, would those fees have to come also from ratepayers?
So the fees that come from the connection fees are what we call special revenue that goes to augment the water and wastewater enterprise funds. Without those fees, we would have to do one of two things: not build projects or find a substitute funding mechanism.
Which could be the ratepayer.
Could be.
Okay, but we also don't have the choice of not building.
Not this project.
Not this project. Okay. Those were the questions that I had, and again, because this is a terrific amount of money that we're looking to spend in the next couple of years, I felt that it was worthy having an airing of this so that folks know that this was a required project and that the cost of this are being borne through connection fees and a grant and not the ratepayers. So my congratulations to city staff, particularly Mike Kern, for spearheading getting this grant through, and I appreciate your good work and that of Derek and Dylan as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council members, any other questions of staff? Anyone in the public wishing to address this matter? All right, I'll close and bring it back to the council. Mike, thank you very much, because I know you did a lot of work to get this grant. With that said, unless you have any other questions, Councilmember Kraus, I'll entertain a motion on item number 8.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kraus, a second by Councilmember Barnes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Enjoy your dinner, Mike. Moving on to item number 9, discussion and consideration of an ordinance amending Title 10 of the Calistoga Municipal Code to prohibit the operation of motorized scooters citywide. The recommended action this evening is discussion regarding ordinance amendment and provide direction to staff. Taking us through this item this evening will be City Manager Feek. Dylan, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, if you've picked up any of our local Bay Area newspapers recently, you've obviously read stories about motorized scooters coming into the Bay Area. It's a trend that's happening in cities nationwide. Even one of our own staff was recently in Portland and observed that across the city of Portland, these small motorized scooters, which you obviously can pedal by your foot like a normal scooter, but they have what's called motor assist. So it does have a small electric motor. There are scooters which have gasoline-powered motors also, which propel pedestrians all throughout town. In all of the cities which are reviewing this discussion, particularly here in the Bay Area, one of the common themes is that cities weren't prepared with their municipal ordinances. They did not have language which addressed these kinds of scooters in advance of commercial businesses bringing these scooters into town and introducing them. Many of these businesses, and you have to excuse that I'm not familiar with some of the names, but I've read many articles, many of them are actively promoting and attempting to bring these scooters into small communities with heavy amounts of tourism, with a large number of guests who are traveling to and fro anywhere throughout town. So probably a month or 6 weeks ago, I spoke with a Councilmember Barnes, about the issue, and we wanted to bring an item to City Council for consideration, for discussion, to determine if there's an appropriate approach moving forward. When I spoke and consulted with the City Attorney first, I asked what are the issues here to look at, what could an ordinance look like if the city were to provide a prohibition on the scooters or any kind of modification. There's a whole variety of issues which the city should be concerned about. First, when the scooters are being operated in the public right-of-way, there's always a risk of a collision. And obviously, like with bicycles, skateboards, any kind of activity, there's loss when there's a life that's lost and there's an issue, an incident. So those are going to be prevalent with any type of transportation that's going on within the public right-of-way. When you look at motorized scooters, who is using them? Is it commercial providers? Is it also residents? What if grandma and grandpa buy us one of these scooters for their grandson who wants to motor it around town? So you have these issues of what's the intended use? Is it a commercial use, or is it just a private use by a resident or a young child who's going to school or an adult who's going to work? The draft ordinance that you have before you is specifically a prohibition on these motorized scooters. At the time we discussed this and we drafted it, we felt that if the city were to ban it, the most effective, clear-cut way to prohibit the operation of scooters within public right-of-way is a strict prohibition. We don't get into constitutional challenges. The city has a right to do this under our vehicle code, but also under our local ordinances. If the city wants to allow for certain types of uses, like, for example, a recreational use, residential use, there are possible ordinances we could draft. It does become more difficult to enforce. A strict prohibition is when we see a scooter, the police department stops them, tells them they have to get off the roads, they can't ride on the roads. It's difficult to determine if someone is here for a recreational use, if it's a commercial use. If it's commercial, if they're staying at a hotel or resort, they might just be recreating in and around the community. It gets very hard to define when a violation of the municipal code exists. There are other, I'll call it unintended consequences if we're trying to keep the scooters off the street, trying to protect public health and safety. Are we trying to prevent little Johnny and Sally from playing around on their kid scooter that they got for Christmas? So there's a lot of issues and a lot of discussion to be had. We're trying to get ahead of this before a commercial provider introduces scooters to hotel establishments, before a business license is requested, to ask council's input and direction on how we proceed. I think it's kind of a similar situation with drones. Drones became a really quick and speedy thing to hit cities. Many cities were unprepared for ordinances to address operation of drones. But this is one that we want to be out in front of and ask if City Council has any direction or input. Tonight, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to entertain discussion, to collect any feedback, direction you'd like to provide us. If the council wants to proceed, or if you want more clarification on the ordinance, I would have the city attorney attend at a follow-up meeting to address the specific questions and concerns you might have, or some of the potential legal issues related to the ordinance. But tonight is essential information gathering. As we do with every ordinance amendment, we always bring items to City Council and ask for your discussion and feedback before we actually go through the process for amending the municipal code. So with that, I leave my presentation to you. Be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Barnes, you want to start this off?
Yeah. When I brought this to Dylan's attention, it is because I saw on television, on the nightly news, several times, cities like San Francisco, San Jose, and other cities around the nation dealing with scooters. They were given out almost free as modes of transportation for people to get around the city. And they would be taken from point A and left at point B. Guy would go into the building, come back out, maybe the scooter would be there or not. But there might be one down the street, and they were being left all over the street. They were blocking pedestrians. They were out in the streets, on the pavement, competing with bicycles, buses, cars, trucks. Huge problem in the big cities, and so both San Francisco and San Jose have banned them now. San Francisco finally this week or last week appointed or gave permits to 2 companies that their ability to have these and go forward with them, but highly, highly regulated. During my research on this, I discovered that there were companies thinking about importing this kind of scooter culture, if you will, to smaller and smaller towns that were, as Dylan said, tourist-oriented. And I could just foresee the influx of a fleet of scooters going down Main Street. Now, I have nothing against hotels giving out bicycles, complimentary bicycles, as a lot of our resorts do. most people that do that know something about a bicycle. They got the basic sense of safety, and they pretty much don't abuse them in this town. They keep them off the sidewalks. They're pretty good. They go by my house fairly regularly, but they're just people out looking around at our town, and that's great. But I could see hordes of them. Oh boy, a scooter. I've never tried that. Let's all get a bunch of scooters and let's go visit some wineries. And you can imagine the mayhem that would ensue. So I asked Dylan to look into this, and he did, and talked to our legal counsel, and I think what they came back with is exactly what I am trying to prevent in this town. This is a walkable town. Bicycles are one thing. I don't think this is a place for scooters, and that's why I asked for this to be looked into.
All right, thank you. Council members, questions?
Yeah, I would have a couple of questions because, while I appreciate Jim's concern with regard to the resorts in town, and this would be probably a natural extension of the bicycle issue to them, I also have a concern about, like Dylan said, you know, we have kids in town, and they already have motorized skateboards and like that, and riding bicycles, and you know, we give out bicycle helmets and all, and I'm just wondering how much more dangerous a motorized scooter is than a skateboard or a bicycle or maybe some other mode of wheeled transportation that I haven't thought of or hasn't been thought of just as yet, to see if we're you know, really going to have a potentially have a positive impact, rather than, you know, a blanket thing. I'm concerned about recreation for our residents, not just the tourists. So I'd like to get a little research done on just how dangerous these things are. They've probably been in operation long enough in San Francisco and San Jose to figure out how often they run somebody down. And I don't mean a car running down the scooter. I mean the scooter running down somebody walking on the sidewalk. That's the big reason why we don't want skateboards on the sidewalks, is not because the kids fall off, because they seem to be able to hang on pretty good, but every once in a while grandma steps out of the pharmacy and gets frightened at minimum. So anyway, I would like to know just what the safety aspects, what the safety history has been, but I think that to get ahead of this, we should start on the process to see what we're going to come up with, but at the same time, I want to know really what the problem has been, rather than just leaving scooters in the middle of the street, which seems to have been a big problem in some of the big cities, and just see really what the problem winds up being.
So next week, Councilmember Lopez Ortega and I are representing the city at the annual League of Cities Conference. All of the cities and towns for the entire state of California will be there, and I do believe this is one of the topics of conversation because it has come on quite fast and furious in a lot of communities. So I would say there's probably some good key learnings we could take from that. But since we have the benefit of our police chief in the room this evening, Mitch, if you wouldn't mind, have any of your colleagues and counterparts in other communities encountered or addressed this yet? I know it's similar to well, exactly what Dylan's reference on the drones was. It kind of caught everybody by surprise, and you're kind of regulating after the fact. Any insight from us, or should we just go to League of Cities and see what they're telling us?
Well, I think we should always go out and take a look at what's going on around us. I'm unaware of whether St. Helena or the city of Napa or the county looking at an ordinance like this. I think the question is what is our intent? What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to address with any sort of restriction or ban or prohibiting motorized scooters? The The difference between, I think, Calistoga, St. Helena, and San Francisco, and Seattle or Portland is that those are very large cities, very large business districts, very large tourist areas. The terrain is uneven, it's a long way, and so it's a way to get people to locations that they don't want to walk a half mile to get someplace. I think we live in a very different environment. I'm not saying that we should not be prepared, in case, there's some sort of commercial type wave coming this way, but I think we need to just be really clear and understand, what are we trying to solve? Are we trying to put something in place so we prevent some sort of commercial use? I think that we'd caution the council on language, on and any form of prohibiting something, in that, the language that's here, I think this came from the attorneys. I don't support the language that's here. I think it's unclear to me if when they use the definition of motor scooters, if they took it directly from the vehicle code or not, because it is quoted in certain areas. In certain areas, it took liberties. And if you read the actual language, it actually prohibits not just motorized scooters, but also human propulsion, any scooters that are moved by human propulsion. If you read the literal language of that, which would mean any scooter, a Razor, any kiddie scooter would be illegal. So I think we have to be really careful about the language we use and what is the purpose. The other thing is, if we move forward with a motorized scooter, understand if it's citywide, as the city managers pointed out, kids get it for Christmas, they get it for their birthday, they're riding around. I can see it put us in a very difficult position. Am I going to cite, Susie's mom or dad for allowing them to have a scooter outside, get off their driveway and drive on a sidewalk or a city street? I think we get a little bit of grief from here. We might have a lot more people here at the city council meeting wanting to relook at this. So I'm not opposed to looking at this. I think the League of Cities are going to other cities. They're getting actual ordinances from other places to see what the language is like. Off the top of my head, I would look at, I think the issue is maybe commercializing this kind of stuff as opposed to a strict. So maybe to restrict it to the business district. But again, what is the reality of the impact to us when you look at our environment? Because it is much different than Seattle, San Jose, San Francisco, just by the distance and the terrain and those kinds of things.
Because my concern...
And our roads are lumpier.
My concern would also be the enforceability of it. I mean, you folks have quite a bit to do with some of the more serious endeavors. In the the research I've done on this, it is the commercial endeavor, which tends to be the challenge, where you're dropping large amounts of these, even relatively speaking, in a small community. So my concern is this a hammer versus a kind of a feather approach to it? Because the last thing I'd want to do is significantly impact the recreational activities of locals because we're trying to keep out Bird or Swift or whatever some of the other ones are called. But obviously open to that. What I would propose is, if council so permits, allow Councilmember Lopez Ortega and I to go off to League of Cities next week like we're doing anyway, and garner as much and plagiarize as much information as possible to bring it back for further consideration with the understanding of the intent versus how we address that. If that's amenable to the council, because I don't think there's not a time-sensitive issue here.
I agree with the comments that all three of you have made, and it was my intent. Maybe I didn't make it clear enough to Dylan, or maybe I didn't say it right. The commercial side of it. I do not want to penalize Grandma and Grandpa for giving Johnny or Susie a scooter for Christmas, or a Razor, which is a scooter that you pedal around with your foot. And I don't recall ever seeing any of those hardly at all in town. My intent was not to commercialize them, not for resorts to give them out, and or have a business in town that specializes in that tourists could come to, like a bike shop. That was my intent. But I agree with everything that you said, Mitch, and you as well, Gary and Chris. So yeah, if we could see what goes on at the League of Cities and come back and modify the language a little bit and make it a little more of a velvet hammer as opposed to a sledgehammer.
I think it would be challenging. I mean, when we understand what the intent is, how it's described and whatever the ordinance is going to look like is extremely important, because there are three-wheeled scooters. And by this ordinance, it wouldn't apply to any three-wheeled scooters. And it could,
There's your loophole.
well, and it could have a seat as long as it allows people to stand up, it qualifies under the vehicle code. And so it was unclear, I assume they were trying to mimic the vehicle code, although they left some words out, which kind of opened it up to human propulsion type scooters.
Okay. So I think your intent was good.
Yes.
And I think we love our lawyers, and no offense to any lawyers in the room, but I think they took it to their safest point possible, which we know is their part of their reason for existence is to mitigate litigation. So with that said, I think by consensus, that's what we'll do. Dylan, you had a comment there?
Yes, thank you very much. I think providing direction from the council, this is the first time we discussed, I think that's very helpful. One thing I just want to point out, and this is because Mitch mentioned it earlier today to me, and I did have a chance to speak, I want to be really clear about the definition of motorized scooter as we proceed. So when you look at the definition, it reads, motorized scooter shall refer to any two-wheel device, so he is correct that it is a two-wheel device right now. It has handlebars, has a floorboard that is designed to be stood upon when driving, and here's the important part, I just want to make a point, and is powered by an electric motor or other power source, such as a diesel or gasoline motor, or by human propulsion. And the reason it's written that way, and this is where we're going to provide advice to kind of fine-tune the definition, this is not intended to be a Razor scooter, something that is only foot-powered. The point is that it has a motor, an electric motor or other power source motor. And even those items can be powered by foot. You actually have to start it. So you can turn it off, you can turn it on. So the purpose of the language being the way it's written is someone can't just shut the motor off and say, hey, I'm doing it by foot. Still has the scooter off by saying, hey, I'm pushing it by foot. It's a lot of little nuances, which, as Mitch is pointing out, is really important when we're writing citations and addressing vehicle code violations or municipal code violations. So it takes time to work through this. So I appreciate your feedback. Appreciate you attending the meeting here in the next couple of weeks. And I'll provide some direction and advice to the city attorney based on tonight's discussion. We'll also wait to hear back from Chris and Iris after your meeting for further edification. Thank you.
Sure. And while this is not a public hearing, is there anyone in the public with a strong feeling about scooters? All right. With that said, we will. Yes, sir. Please share with us your name and address, should you so choose, but you are not required.
Richard Testa, View Road. Have we looked at the state law? Because I looked at it quickly. First off, to qualify as a scooter, I believe you cannot exceed 15 miles an hour.
Correct.
I did that when on my bike, so I'm not sure it's...
With your helmet on, though, Richard.
Yeah,
Okay.
all the rules are the same.
Yeah.
No,
I
I
don't
would,
understand why we're going after a moped. No, it's not a moped, a scooter.
I would recommend that if we do that ordinance, it's also any scooter that is pulled by a dog.
Yeah, that too. I mean, you did-
Well, the fact is
Rick has a pit bull that's that's energetic.
around.
His name is Rocket.
Yeah.
Rocket, and he is.
So we're not the first ones to be contending with this, so we'll go back to the League of Cities, and it is something that's caught everybody off guard because of the commercial application of what used to be a kid's toy and is now a viable means of transportation. But when you commercialize it to the degree that other cities have, it's created some issues, especially with passage through sidewalks as reference, and especially it's had serious complications to passage of persons with disabilities, wheelchairs, etc. So we want to avoid that. All right, anything else on this one? All right, so we will adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be September 18th in this same room at 6 p.m. Everyone have a lovely evening, and thanks for your attendance.